Hello, English teachers. This is an ESL conversation starter and it's designed for teens and adults at the intermediate level. And my store is called the Speak Up English Talk Resources, and you can find me at the Teachers Pay Teachers website. And I specialize in designing conversation lessons or speaking activities for kids, teens, and also adults. And all my lessons are theme-based. So this one that I'm going to present to you is on rising heat and also rising air conditioning sales. The way my lessons are designed is that I come in three parts. So the first part is teaching the students some key vocabulary. So each lesson comes with like 6 or 7 new vocabulary. So here's an example. The term business opportunity, what does that mean, right? And here's a definition. You don't have to get the student to read this, but you can just explain to the student what this really means. And here's a picture, right? And then here's a sample sentence. You can get the student to read the sample sentence so that they can get a sense of how to use this term in daily English. And also, all my lessons come with beautiful graphics because a picture tells 1,000 words. Here's another example here, right? The word manufacturer. What does that mean? So here's a sample sentence, and the sentence is about a bike manufacturer. And then after you teach these key vocabulary to the students, then you can move on to part two. And part two is a short article, and they're split into a few pages. And each page has maybe 3 or 4 sentences at most. So it's easy on the eye, especially when you're doing online teaching. It's easier for the student to absorb as well. And so here, for example, the article talks about, recently, over the recent years, because of global warming, the weather is getting hotter and hotter in the summer. So recently, like Europe, has experienced like several periods of like really high, like hot temperature. So as a result of that, they're in trouble because a lot of the Europeans in places like France, they don't have ACs in their homes. So because of this extreme hot weather, people are getting like uncomfortable, right? Some people are getting sick. And it goes on to talk about because there's a rising demand right now for ACs in Europe. So it actually, boosts business opportunities, right, for these AC manufacturers. So you can start, talking to your students, ask your student, like, where do you live? Which part of the world do you live? Are you experiencing high temperatures, and how do you deal with it? And does your home have an AC? Is it central AC, or is it just a portable one, right? And you can also share your experience. For example, for me, I tell my student, my home, I have a central AC, and but unfortunately, like because I live in Canada, so in the past, summer was never used to be that hot. So a lot of the primary schools, they still don't have ACs installed because they're not used to that. We never had to deal with such hot weather. And so right now, a lot of the primary school kids, they feel very uncomfortable, when it's when it gets to like over 30 something degrees. So after you finish reading this article, or after the student finishes reading the article, so you can move on to part 3, which is a discussion activity. All my lessons come with like 7 or 8 questions. So they're designed to save you, the teacher, the time from having to come up with these questions. But of course, if you have your own questions, feel free to bring them up, right? And then, for example, this is a sample question, at what temperature do you think air conditioning becomes necessary? You can share your views and your opinion as well. So I tell my student, I feel like, when it hits 26 degrees Celsius, then I feel the need to turn on my AC, right? People's answers vary, right? Some people, have a lower tolerance level for hot weather. So you can talk about that. And also, while you're talking to them, pay attention to their grammar and their pronunciation. They do tend to get confused with verb tenses and also verb conjugates, like first person, second person, third person. For example, like mom, my mother do not, or my mother don't let me, or instead you should remind them, right? It's a third person. My mom is a she, so it's like my mom doesn't let me do something, right? So pay attention to these things. Another one is they get confused with verb tenses. For example, they might say something like, oh, yesterday I go to school, right? So, but it's yesterday, right? So remind them yesterday it really should be went. But again, I try not to overcorrect. Don't overcorrect them. Let them talk, as much as they can, and at least let them finish what they have to say, or, wait for them to say at least like 5 to 6 sentences before you jump in to correct. So moving on, there's another question like, do you think air conditioning is a luxury or is it a necessity, right? And again, I go back to my experience. I live in Canada many years ago. We didn't need ACs. So whoever that owns an AC system, we consider that, wow, that's a luxury. Wow, that family has an AC. Wow. But these days, everybody's got AC in their homes. We need it. Here, have you ever felt sick because of the heat? Again, of course I have. I got a heat stroke before, and I also got a sunburn. Ask your students to talk about their experience. I have students that live in China, and they, in the summer they got sick from the heat stroke. So talk about that experience as well. So that's it for today. And for more lesson ideas, you can drop by my store, and I do sell lessons individually, and also they come in packages. Okay, thanks. Bye.